Okay, in the last video I made, I was looking at these fuel rail pressure maps, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on forward rather than go back and look at the other injection maps until I get to here, because I want to look at this, because I mentioned tuning before, and obviously most people who tune will have wanted to look at the torque map, and the next map they will want to look at is the smoke map. So here we've got the smoke map. I actually prefer to think of it as not a smoke map, but as a limiter for injection quantity based on something to do with airflow, but that's just me being silly. So here we go, we've got the smoke map. Now what we've got is we've got engine speed in revs per minute as usual, which means that these numbers without their factor would be quite high. So if I go and look at that there we are, went to 10,800, but with a factor of 0.5, that's our revs per minute. Now across the top I could expect to find either MAF flow or air pressure. Now in this particular one it's air pressure. The clue generally is the numbers are not very big. When I say not very big, we've got 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. Now if we were looking at numbers that were MAF flow, we would want numbers that started off at the lowest in the region of about 500, but as they got up we would want the numbers to appear here in some respects smaller, but we'd want them to have different sets of noughts on them, wouldn't we? Because we would expect to see up here numbers like 1,000 and 1,200. So although I would expect to see smaller numbers, it's a game on words, because it's smaller numbers that might look like bigger numbers. In other words, because by the time I've put in the factors, which will always be based on either 0.1 or just 1 or 0.01, then I can see what the real numbers are. Now the fact that these numbers, if I was to use a factor on these, if we look at them and we say to ourselves, what were they originally? You can see they went up to 2,600 originally. Now, this is what I mean about the numbers being big or small. If I use a factor of 0.1 on these, I'd get a value of 260, which feels like a sort of odd value. If I use a value of 0.1, I'd get a number of 26, which again would seem like an odd value, because neither of those numbers would tie in well with air, as in mass flow of air, because the mass flow, as we've already seen in earlier videos, we would be expecting a figure of somewhere around about 1,200, maybe 1,400. So that's what I meant about whether numbers are bigger or smaller. What we've got here is 2600, and so it is probably air pressure. So it is probably 2600 millibars. In other words, what we've got here then is the actual pressure once the turbocharger has given the standard air pressure of somewhere in the region of 900 an extra bit of push. So we've got it running up to 2,600. Now obviously an extra clue or an extra help here would be to find out what sort of output the turbocharger could reasonably manage, because if the turbocharger for this engine usually puts out somewhere in the region of, let's say, 2,350 or 2,500, then we would expect this to go up to about 2,600, wouldn't we? Because that would keep everything within the limits that we've got. So again, it gives us a clue as to where we are. These values, just like in an EDC17, are going to be the fuel. So in other words, this here is fuel quantity, and in fact I haven't put that in, so I'll put in there injection quantity. I've got milligrams per hub there, I'm not sure why, so I'll change that to milligrams per cycle because I'm not German. So milligrams per cycle, must have been having an aberration, and then we've got 0.01 to bring the values down from their original. That's the factor that we're going to use. So here's the maximum amount we're going to inject. So we're going to inject just under 70 milligrams. Now if we go all the way back to the torque map, if we just move that out of the way, let's go all the way back to the torque map, which is going to be way down here somewhere now, isn't it? It's before all these injection maps. So all the way back down here, before those. Keep going. There we go. There's the torque. If we go all the way back down to the torque map, come on, open. What have we got here? Well, we had it in torque, so we went all the way, so we had up to 377 in terms of torque. So if we then go, where was the injection quantity map? Let's have a quick look on this one. Can we get 377? We can get somewhere in the region of that. Now that's quite interesting. So this could well be a regeneration map, because this is still quite low. Look, it's still looking somewhere in the region of 70, and that's still in the region of 70. It's marginally higher than what we've got on this one, but that does make you think that might be regeneration. Let's go and see if we can find another one. Have I got any more maps that might have been torque? That looks like no. Keep going. I'd like to see. Oh, there's something else that might be a torque map. So let's have a look at that one. So still about 70. What have we got in this one? Marginally over 70. So in fact, the torque map, and in this case I'll go back to where we were before. So here the torque map and the smoke map are not that dissimilar, but you can see that they're very, very slightly down. So in other words, this is a little bit down, just a tiny amount under what the torque map is allowing. Now obviously if we were to raise the torque map, it wouldn't have any effect, because this map would still be holding us where we are. If we want more power from this engine, then these are the values that we would eventually have to consider raising, along with all the other values, because otherwise this final value here is going to hold us back, to stop us producing too much smoke. And as in EDC17, the whole point of this map is to keep the injected quantity under control for a given amount of air, because if we don't do that, all we'll be doing is injecting in more fuel than we can burn efficiently, and we'll just produce more smoke. Some people love the idea of producing more smoke, but of course more smoke from a diesel in many countries, especially in Europe and America, would just attract undue attention from people involved in the legal profession, because they would know that your car was polluting a lot more than it was supposed to be. So generally speaking, if we want to get more power, we can start raising values, but all the way through we'll need to raise values in maps right up to the point where we give more air for more fuel here to try and keep the smoke amount under control. So that's our smoke limit. So we've pretty much covered all of the important maps so far, apart from fueling. I think there might be an odd couple we need to look at, and then I'm going to have to go and look at the more complicated side of fueling. So I will stop there.